Hi, I'm Sean Larkin from PlanFirst Pinnacle Design. We are architectural, interior and landscape design specialists based in Auckland, New Zealand. Today I'm going to carry on with our topic we have been talking about for the last couple of weeks. And that is, we started off by looking at whether a typical house plan can work on different site typologies. So we had a look firstly at the urban environment. Last week we had a look at mountain or sloping sites. And today we're going to have a look at beach or coastal sites. So what are the biggest challenges and the biggest opportunities for those sites? And things to look out for if either you're buying, building, designing on a beach or coastal site. Okay, so this is part 4 of our mini-series. We still have 2 typologies to go after this week. But for this week, we will start by looking at what is a beach or coastal site. So it doesn't mean that the site needs to be on the sand. It can sit a little way back. It can overlook harbors. It can be on a hill. It can be on dunes. But what all coastal sites have got in common is they're all exposed quite harshly to the elements, being wind, salt, sun, which often with the salt and the wind comes corrosion. So one's got to look carefully at that and which materials you're going to choose when you build at the coast. So materials you would use inland are not going to be the same as materials you would use if you build on the coast. The climate and the elements are much harsher on the coast. I almost want to say out of all the typologies we're going to look at, the coastal site or the beach site is definitely the harshest and the one that needs the most consideration in design. So why are coastal homes different? The house has to respond to so many things. And I think having a beach site or a coastal site like this is most probably most people's dream. And it can work brilliantly well, and it normally does. But care's got to be given to certain aspects of the design. So you would respond to views. Obviously, the sea view being the view you would want to respond to most. You want to have that calm, flexible outdoor living as well. So outdoor living, definitely something to look at. Then wind, there's always a lot of wind at the coast, and that is because you've got the water and the land which heats up and cools down at different rates. So you will always have wind at the coast. And it's great to have a nice sea breeze that cools the house, but sometimes the wind can get quite strong and then it's unpleasant to actually sit outside and entertain or have your coffee or whatever it is that you're doing. Sun and glare also very important to keep in mind because you can get really, really strong glare off the sea. Specifically if you are elevated, then that glare can be it can become quite harsh. So one's just got to look carefully at that. Privacy, of course, if you have a beach site like this, you could have people walking in front of your house as they're strolling up and down the beach. So that's something to keep in mind. Probably not that important for living areas, but for private spaces like bedrooms, you would have to just have a look very carefully at that. Your maintenance, as I said earlier, is going to be a lot more. You would use your stainless steels, have a look at all the aluminium, for instance, powder coated, things that aren't going to corrode as quickly. And it's not only the materials in your windows and your roofing and your cladding, it's the fixings as well. So very different fixings compared to what you would use inland. And maintenance, of course, on those items, you do a lot more maintenance at the coast. Simply because of the harsh environment. And then durability. Spend a little bit more on getting more durable products. You don't want to have to replace your roof after 5 years. So have a look at all those types of things. And of course, the biggest opportunity with these sites is the view. Sea view is just relaxing, calming. It's forever moving, so there's always something to look at. So capture those ocean views as best you can. Natural light, of course, you want to try and have as much open, expansive glass as you can to capture the views. Having said that, be mindful sometimes, depending on the orientation of your site. We all would love it to face due north or south, but the reality is that normally the site faces a little bit east or west as well. So sometimes a picture window would actually be more beneficial than having floor-to-ceiling glass the whole width of the room. And you'd want to just create that nice, relaxed lifestyle. I think for most of us living at the coast, it feels like you're forever on holiday, which is fantastic. If only we were all on holiday all the time. But connect those indoor-outdoor spaces. And in connecting those indoor-outdoor spaces, keep in mind the wind. You would want to shelter a portion of your outdoor living. An open deck like this is great if there's no wind, but very unpleasant when there is wind. So we've got an image a little bit later that just shows a sheltered courtyard on the other side of the house, which can work if it is windy and it's just too unpleasant to sit on the open deck. And of course, designing for views, you should consider where's the best view. They're not all going to have 370 or 270 degree views, certainly not 360 degree views. So have a look, where's your most important view and what rooms do you want to face that view? Often you will find double-story houses on the coast because you want to take as much advantage of that view as possible. So you could have living areas at the bottom, taking advantage of the views, and then of course your bedrooms at the top. And just keep in mind, as much as you want a whole load of glass so that you've got that sea view all around you, take note of the glare and the privacy, and you want to keep yourself private from the neighbors as well if you do have neighbors. It's not all isolated instances where you have houses with nothing next to it. Normally in urban settings on the coast, you do have neighbors. So you want to keep private from your neighbors and also private from people walking on the beach as much as you can. Probably one of the more difficult aspects of the design. Then connect your indoor-outdoor living. Keep your bedrooms as private as you can. Doing it on the top floor is probably a good solution for that. And then you retain the views as well. And make sure some of your outdoor areas are covered so that you can use them in the rain. Also, you would want to enclose some of them as well or put them on a sheltered side. There's a very nice image that we'll have a look at just now, which has designed it really well, that they've kept the sea view, but they've also put the patio on the sheltered side of the house. Then your biggest challenge is going to be the wind, the salt, the sun, and the maintenance aspect. Loads of maintenance needs to be done on these houses. Otherwise, what happens is your materials are going to corrode and they're going to have to be replaced. So much more cost effective to do some maintenance as opposed to replacing. So strong winds reasonably often at the coast. The salt air, of course, the spray comes onto that house, especially if it's this close to the beach. It's something you're not going to get away from. So just make sure you choose your materials carefully. The harsh sunlight with a glare. Moisture, of course, because you are at the coast, you've got a lot of moisture in the air. So always have a cavity, whether you are building with brick, have your cavity wall, or if you're building with cladding, then just make sure you've got your cavity between your framing and your cladding. Sand, of course, is another one. If the wind picks up the sand and blows it against the materials, it's going to definitely affect those materials, and you will definitely have some damage over time. And then just your high maintenance needs, as we said earlier. So this is the image I was talking about, where this has been designed, I think, very cleverly, that you've got the sheltered area at the back. If it is a lot of wind coming off the ocean, you are sheltered because you've got the glass sliders that you can close. Still got that beautiful view, but you don't have the wind. And if it is a nice calm day, you can open those sliders all together, and then you've got that breeze coming through the house. It's a really clever way of dealing with the wind factor at the coast. So shelter your outdoor areas. On the sides of your house where you don't have a view, have solid walls there. Even in this instance here, there's a solid wall at the side. I mean, this room on the left doesn't have a sea view, so one can have a wall there, and it does just shelter that outdoor seating area. I like to always cover outdoor areas so that you can use them year-round. You can still use some form of translucent sheeting with your pergola if you want to, depending on what you're designing for. But you would want to use that space year-round, in my opinion. Courtyards is another great one. You guys know by now that courtyards is a favorite for me. So if you can incorporate a courtyard into the house design so that you can still have that landscape, vegetation, greenery coming into your house without sacrificing the view, you can have the best of both worlds. And it gives you that privacy as well. And then have more than one outdoor living space. So have your deck in the front, which is open without a roof potentially, but then have another sheltered one as well so that you've got the options. Instances like this, it also links very well, especially a lot of these types of homes get used by the extended family over the holiday period. So nice to keep living areas to one side, bedrooms to the other side, so that, those that want to go to the bedrooms, they don't get disturbed by people that are using the living spaces. And you can connect these two with your outdoor living, with a roof over, of course. Here you've got a nice example of a roofed area with your dining and a seated area with your fireplace. And what I would do in this instance is just make sure you've got some glass sliders on the far end so that you still, as we said in the previous slide, you've still got your sea view, but you can keep the wind out, because this would definitely be very much a wind tunnel if the wind had to pick up. Just make sure it's comfortable living. The coast is known for really just comfortable, easy, relaxed living. And make sure you can use it in different weather conditions. Materials and maintenance, things to have a look at when you are choosing materials. Is your cladding, your roofing, windows and doors and balustrades. Make sure that they are either aluminium or coated really well. If you do have timber cladding, make sure you maintain it regularly. I would say every 6 months. And then with your decking, and this is something that's come about in recent years, well, not that recent, I guess. You can always use composite for decking, because that is, it's not treated, but it's manufactured in such a way that it doesn't need that maintenance. So that's a very good solution. If you aren't around, say it's a batch and you only use it once or twice a year, you wouldn't need to maintain it as you would if it was natural timber. Paint finishes, just be sensible about it and use the products that are made for the coast. Speak to the specialists. Everybody at the coast who has an outlet let's call it painters, they will know exactly what paint you should be using, especially on the exterior of your house. And then your exterior lights as well, make sure that they are not going to corrode, along with hinges, handles, and fixings. Hugely important that. Then when you have a look at glare, you can see in this image, there's quite a lot of glare off that ocean at certain times of the day. So have a look, where is your sun direction on that site? Try and have some form of screen for the times that it does glare. It can be quite harsh. So even if you do it with internal window dressings, some kind of roller blind that you can just close for the period of time that there is glare on the sea, especially if you've got these large windows. Roof overhangs, great, but they're not really going to help for the glare. They might help a little bit for the upper level, not really going to help too much for the lower level. And then just have some shading devices. If you know that the glare is predominantly on one spot most of the time, just make sure that you protect that specific space from the areas that you would mostly use in the home. Natural ventilation, of course, you want that breeze to come through, and you want to still keep it comfortable. So I always say, have as much flexibility as you can. You want it to be open with the sea views when it's calm and there's no glare on the sea, but you want to be able to just screen it off. So quite easily done. Plan it in the beginning when you are busy with your concept design phase. And then, of course, your privacy. Even the swimming pool here, there's absolutely zero privacy here. So it's great when there aren't people on the beach, but you are definitely going to be living in a fishbowl if there are people using the beach. So screen from your neighbors. Have a look where your road access is, your beach access paths. I mean, in this case, you are right on the beach. So fantastic, and also not at the same time. So it is the biggest opportunity, but it's also quite a big challenge. Elevating the house does help to an extent, but it is nice to be on the beach. And then, of course, a beach house must be practical as well. You are at the beach, you want to do beach things, you want to go and surf, you want to walk on the sand, you want to go and swim in the sea. You want to go kayaking or whatever it is that you do. And for that, outdoor shower, I would say, is essential, especially if you've got small children. You don't want the sand to go into the house multiple times a day because you're going to spend your life cleaning. So have that outdoor shower. Let everybody just have a rinse off when they come back from the beach. And when they go into the house, the sand stays outside. Have a place to keep your surfboards and your paddle skis and scuba gear or whatever it is that you've got. This may be not the biggest or the best solution, because if the wind picks up, those boards are also going to pick up. Have a storage room where you can keep all your beachy things that need to go with you to the beach. Make sure you've got boat parking, comfortable boat parking if you've got a boat, and space for a trailer, because, obviously your boat comes with a trailer. And have enough guest parking, because you will be, I'm sure, having a lot of guests over while you are here. So make sure everybody's comfortable, enough space to park, and just plan it from the beginning. Instead of putting the house maybe in the center of the site, move it over to one side so that you can use the other side for the parking and the boat. Then your outdoor living options. Make sure your outdoor living is close to your indoor living. So indoor kitchen must be connected to the outside. Of course, you're going to use the sea view for that as well. Have your outdoor covered area and then also your outdoor uncovered area, because you don't always want the cover. So just allow for that flexibility. If you've got a pool area, just make sure that's also, you want it to be close to your living area. it also depends on the family. If you've got small children, you maybe don't want the pool to be too close to the living area or the outdoor patio, because kids run and splash and jump in the pool, and that's what they should be doing. So you might want to move it a little bit away. Just depends on your circumstances. Always design for how you live. And then you can have your fire pit if you like, and surround it with a bit of landscaping. As much as you want, as much sea view as possible. You also do want to bring some green space into it. And then things to check early on when you are busy with a concept design phase. You've given your designer the brief, but discuss these things as well. Just make sure the designer is aware of the wind exposure. Where is the prevailing wind coming from? The salt exposure, of course, with your finishes and your corrosion. And of course, flood risk. That is something I didn't actually touch on earlier. Have a look at your flood plans. You normally would be able to get that from your local council, because you just want to make sure that you're building above that floodplain, just to prevent damage if there is a flood. And with a flood comes erosion. So very important to check that with your council and with your engineers before fixing the positioning of the design. Council rules, of course, there will be setback rules, there will be height rules as well. So remember to check that. Your access and your parking, we spoke about that briefly. And then, of course, your long-term and ongoing maintenance that you will have to do. Try and use as many maintenance-free products as you can. You don't want to spend your whole holiday if you don't live here, or even if you do live here, you don't want to spend the majority of your time doing maintenance on your house, because then it actually takes away from the pleasure of being there. So if we go back to our 250 square meter house, can it work on a beach site? Yes, it can. And also, as I say, for every site, most probably not as it is, it would need to be tweaked in some way. And you would want to tweak it to capture the views, to make sure you have outdoor living space that is sheltered. Make sure you take in the wind into consideration, privacy, check your materials that they are suitable, and you want it to be comfortable. Does it support your lifestyle? Each family and each person lives differently, so make sure you are designing for the way that you live. Otherwise, it just creates frustration down the line. Also, be mindful of having too much glass if the site doesn't allow for it. So what might need to change is definitely window positions. Your living areas, your deck size and location, you might be limited. So very important to check your coverage on your site before you actually start designing. Know what your cap is on your area, and then design according to that. Shading, of course, this is a nice image. It protects the windows and doors. But it's got no columns or pillars in the front, so it's cantilevered, so you've still got the view which is uninterrupted. Yes, entry would be different on different sides of the house depending where the road is, but if you are on the beach like this, of course the entrance would be at the back of the house, which is ideal. And then your privacy screen. So this is one way of doing it. If you have got a beach property like this one, you do want to have a lot of glass, but you want to retain privacy and you want to design for the glare. You can have screens that slide. It's a great way of actually dealing with a number of the challenges at the same time. And then your design strategies for a coastal property, especially if it's elevated, you would look at framing those ocean views. A lot of things that we have spoken about previously. Natural vegetation, I think, is one that often gets overlooked. try and minimize your hard surfaces as much as possible. Keep it just to the portion that you are actually going to use, and plant natural vegetation on the remainder. It does soften the house. It's a windbreaker as well. And, it's nice to have often you will find with the natural vegetation that you will have certain little flowers that have certain smells. It brings the bird life in. It just softens the house a little bit. Practical storage needs, especially at the coast, have that tucked away. You don't want to have everybody's snorkel and fins lying on the on the deck at the front. Have a dedicated place where come back from the beach, pop it into the storage, give it a rinse first, of course, pop it into the storage, and then it's out of everybody's way. And of course, having natural vegetation cuts out on the maintenance of your landscaping and your garden. So what makes a good coastal house? Capturing the views, first prize. Feeling relaxed and open, because that really is what being at the beach is all about. It gives you a bit of a holiday feel. Even if you live there permanently, it is nice to have that relaxed feeling. Protection from the wind, sun and glare. Your outdoor spaces must be very mindfully designed. Durable, easy to maintain, and it must support everyday beach living. And I think if you do buy a beach site, the reason you're buying a beach site is because you want that lifestyle. So just a little bit of a checklist if you are considering building on a beach site or a coastal site. And the verdict is yes, normal stock standard house plan can work, but with significant tweaks, as it is for every site. So I think really the bottom line or the principle of what we are trying to say in this mini-series is that any design can work on any site, but with some tweaks. And again, just very similar to what we've spoken about before, just what your plan needs to respond to. And then the final takeaway is a coastal home should enjoy the coast, but it should also be protected from it, because the biggest opportunities are also the biggest challenges. And that is it for coastal sites. Remember that you can always ask questions during the talk, and I'll answer them while I'm busy with a chat if there is time. Just to introduce next week's topic, it's going to be part 5 of this particular mini-series, and we're going to talk about rural and lifestyle sites. Again, we'll go through the same format that we've used for the other sites. So we'll look at what is it exactly, what are the biggest opportunities and what are the biggest challenges, and just maybe also a little bit of a checklist of what you should look out for before you start designing. So that is next week's talk. There are my details. If you would like to drop me a line, you're welcome. I'm always here for advice. Even if you are international, you don't have to be based in New Zealand to send me questions, and I will do my best to answer them. Alternatively, I will find the answer and I will get back to you with some form of answer to your questions. So feel free, and I will be back again next week with our rural and lifestyle sites. So enjoy the week and see you all again next week. Thank you.